This video was brought to you by Patreon. For bonus videos, polls, and options to commission your own topic, you can find more details in the links below. Good Omens is one of my favorite books. As a show, I find it entertaining, and it's been sweet to see a community that has been built around it. Season 1 and 2 were a delight, and I was excited to watch Season 3. And then the Neil Gaiman allegations came to light in July, and suddenly things got complicated. As more allegations came forward, things got really complicated, and in September of 2024, I came across an interesting thought experiment. And I literally have another Deadline article for this, god damn it. Neil Gaiman is understood to have offered to step back from the third and final season of Prime Video's fantasy drama Good Omens. Deadline revealed on Monday that pre-production has paused on the BBC studio-produced show in wake of allegations made by 4 women against Gaiman, which he denies. So that's interesting as a hypothetical because most of my concept of death of the author, when used as an argument to not consume or consume media, not as a literary interpretation, comes from the monetary standpoint. I know people say there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, but the thing about that saying is, especially with entertainment media, the option then is not to consume. Good Omens is not my groceries. I can live without it or find ways to get it secondhand that would prevent the single symbolic cent going from my wallet into this man's, who is already so wealthy that he wouldn't really feel the dent, but that's not the point.
Like I said, I mainly think about the financials, but I do understand there's a symbolic element to all of this.
When I think about separating the art from the artist, again, not in the literary lens, just in this consumption lens, I always recognize that this is never really a term or argument we use when we want to separate a figure we like from a book or a piece of media that we like. If the artist is creating art and is a good guy, we are eager to associate their work with their personality and reveal how one affected the other. Separating the two will usually be because we can't reconcile one or the other. And usually if we're separating art from the artist, but we like the artist as a person, it's, their art isn't very good. That's a pretty low to neutral set of stakes when the real life person is considered fine. When we're using separating the art from the artist as an argument for the question of consumption, it is inherently defensive because now it's a question of supporting an individual because we like the work more than we like our principles. We know supporting the work goes against something we believe to be right, but we can't leave it behind us because of the impact the art has had on us despite the artist.
I think grappling with your feelings on a piece in spite of whoever made it is an important thing to do, and I don't really blame anyone for having some mixed emotions on it.
But it's when you get to statements like J.K. Rowling didn't write Harry Potter that I get a little bit less sympathetic. And I mean for the people who take that stance seriously, not the ones who make a joke out of it. Hatsune Miku cannot be the originator of all things. She's too powerful as it is. I think if you're choosing to separate art from the artist because you don't want to feel guilt when consuming their goods and supporting them even symbolically bothers you to the point where you have to cut their name out of the work, I don't think that's very useful to yourself or the people around you. Same with the people saying that the art wasn't very good in the first place. I think denying the authorship of a piece is a way of creating distance that's not useful. Emotionally, if I read a certain book that I've liked since I was 6, I'll enjoy it for what it is, but with a much more critical eye at the politics or certain elements that, now that I have a better understanding of the author, will change my experience when consuming the art. But there's also the fact that there's different scales of bad people. There's the ones who maybe committed a social faux pas, and then there's the ones who are actively lobbying against people, and then there's the ones who haven't hurt you personally and maybe advocate for the things that you like, but have harmed individuals who you do not know. I think reconciling with the fact that you love something that may have been an objectively good piece of art but is attached to someone who you do not want to associate with or feel disappointed in is an important part of the process. I think it's very easy to stop supporting something when you don't care about it in the first place. But when you do care, and even when you found inspiration in these figures, I think there is a difference between, your personal scope of enjoyment and contributing to a larger accruement of the artist's power.
What I mean by this is that if you personally enjoy something, I think that's different than actively promoting something that could lead to an artist being beloved or forgiven because they make good art. This can get muddied with financials very easily, but essentially if you do have a certain piece of art that is given this level of renown, that can also be attached to the author's name and open up different projects for them in their industry. So I'd call that like a much more public consequence and a much more public thinking idea of enjoying an art than personally enjoying one.
As a content creator with some pull on TikTok, I think I have more of a personal responsibility to do my homework framework and try not to promote stuff that could lead to the purchase ultimately contributing to a cause or an individual who I do not support, then I would have discussing that same piece of art amongst friends. And we can fall back onto whataboutisms and the idea of, well, everybody in the industry is corrupt, which, I mean, probably, but you know about this person now. And unlike a company, I think we as people are more likely to feel the need to engage with the question of separating the art from the individual artist, because we can understand the scope of one person's harm more than a company's. And unlike authors who are actually dead and thus supporting them or promoting their works is ultimately consequenceless, Neil Gaiman is still very much alive. Only you can answer what you feel when you're actually interacting with the art, but I think it is a reasonable thing to understand that it isn't as simple as bad people only make bad art, or good art can only be made if it is made by the right people.